Deconverted Man here. Alex Boldt. Who is this guy? I don't know. Some guy on YouTube. He's got a video that I responded to. I made a short response. And, whenever I do these live responses, I'm unscripted. I'm kind of, it's just whatever comes to my mind is what I say. And I do that sometimes with comments too. When I type up comments, I can get rather jaded. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about a comment I left on the first video that I did respond to. Now he's responding to me in 2 parts. So I'm going to be responding to his 2 parts in this response video, and also talking about the first thing. And then anyways, it's going to be all sorts of stuff. So yes, it's going to be another short video from YouTube or Deconverted Man of, and there you go. So yeah, so during the many conversations and texts that he was having, Alex linked a video, and then in response to Mark Hill, I think. Now, I love how YouTube breaks its little comment system. Isn't that great? It doesn't know how to at people anymore. I just think that's fantastic job there. It's just really, really good. Saying things like, debunking evolution, and I don't know what he's talking about. What is evolution evolving to? That shows a fundamental misunderstanding of what evolution is. It's not getting to anything. It's adapting to survive in the environment that it finds itself in. That's what life is doing. There's no end goal. So this is just, you need to learn biological evolution. I don't know what else to tell you for that. Time hasn't passed indefinitely. It's about 13.7 billion light years, something like that. Yeah, age of the universe. I want to say, was it 13? Yeah, 13.8, and then the Earth is 4.54. Yeah, I had to double check on Google. Then he says the speed of light has not been measured. This is complete fiction. This is completely and utterly wrong in every single way that it could be wrong. We humans have measured the speed of light numerous times in numerous ways. At least, there's 4 famous people that did it, and then lately we've done it. We do it all the time. GPS wouldn't work if we didn't understand the speed of light. This is a non-controversial issue in science. There's zero disagreement with it. We understand the speed of light. So nobody has any idea where you got that idea from, Alex. I would like you to explain to us where you got the idea that the speed of light hasn't been measured. They allegedly use the orbit of moons of Jupiter, which was based on the distance of the sun. They measured the distance of the sun using Jupiter. Did they do that? I don't know. It's a bunch of circular reasoning nonsense. Because scientists often use circular reasoning, right, Alex? So I just downvoted that. And then he said the speed of light has been measured. How did you come to that conclusion? And he says that he doesn't think that the Earth might be like 5 billion years old. So that suggests to me he might be a young Earth person, perhaps. And that's just something. Look. It's very important that I say this, and it should go without saying, but I'll say it anyways. I'm not attacking the person. I'm attacking the ideas. Understanding what his ideas are helps us to understand his other ideas to some degree. The fact that he might, or the, I don't know if it's a fact, it might be a fact, the possibility that he's a young earther and other things we'll get to, doesn't mean he can't make a valid and sound argument. He didn't make a valid or sound argument, but he could. The fact, or potential fact, that he doesn't understand biological evolution, definitely, without a doubt in my mind, doesn't mean that he couldn't have something to say on the matter. But it would be as likely as blindfolding yourself, throwing a dart backwards at a dartboard that you don't know is even there and hitting a bullseye as you win a chess match against a grandmaster. Possible, highly, but not very likely. Highly unlikely. Also, you're still blindfolded when you win against a grandmaster in chess. So yeah, could it be done? Sure, but yeah, I don't think so. I get the feeling that he knows some philosophy stuff, and he scripts out the thing that he wants to say, and then he reads it, and that's fine. You know, when I do an edited video, I make sure that it's edited nicely and all that. When I do these live videos, I like to just go on my own thoughts and not read on a script or anything like that. You know, everyone has their own style. Not saying anything about that. But the fact, or potential fact, I keep saying fact, and I should say fact because I don't know it's a fact, the possibility that he's a young earther and has other odd beliefs doesn't negate his arguments out of the park. But it lets me understand why it is that he has such a odd perspective on other things of reality. Because when you have the wrong beliefs about reality, that's going to compile on itself and lead to a completely wrong view of reality. And so there isn't a way that you could possibly make a valid and sound argument that I mean, with at least not maybe accidentally, but like I said, the likelihood is extraordinarily high. You can't make a coherent view of reality unless you understand reality. Okay, so that's why I'm reading through this. Many tests have been falsified. No, they haven't. Doubtful about the conclusion of the test. What tests are you talking about? And he contests the notion based on the worldwide flood that never happened, because we know the worldwide flood did not and could not happen. Aaron Ra has several videos explaining how impossible that is from every single perspective you could want. So I would say go check those out. It's a learning experience. I've listened to those very closely. It's very informative. I learned a lot of things from it. I mean, he goes over biological reasons why it's impossible, physical reasons why it's impossible, you know, historical reasons, etc., etc., etc. It didn't happen. The translation is flawed. That's the best we could do with it. If you want to say that the Bible is true, then the only way to view the Bible correctly, if you will, would be to think what they meant by world, that when they translate that to English from Hebrew, Aramaic, Greek, whatever the bleep it was, that they made a mistake. That's one possibility. The other possibility is what they meant by world is the world they know, which is very small, not the whole world. Okay. And it's, of course, there's other historical and textual reasons why we should think that the story is a myth. It matches, what is it, Gilgamesh's story, I think it is, offhand. I could be wrong about that, but it matches other stories that were told at the same time, or around the same time that the Jewish people would have known these stories. They would have been familiar with them. So it's very easy to copy and paste that story and alter it for your own uses. And it became a popular story. And there's stories of this in different parts of the world. There are many flood stories. So some people say, that's proof of the flood. No, it's proof that people experience floods. And there is this story that we tell of at least one, if not more, people surviving against the odds, because that's a hopeful story. And it's a story that might or might not be based on reality, but it's like, look, even when things are bad, you could potentially survive that. That's the essence of the story. It doesn't suggest that it really happened. It suggests that there are localized floods and people witnessed that and made stories about it. So, could you point me to a reference for how the conclusions? Go learn science. That's what I would say. You know, don't ask YouTubers to learn for you or to educate you on the matter. There's universities level lectures that you can get for free online and on YouTube. There's college level. There's, I think, high school level. I could be wrong about that. There's books. There's all sorts of resources out there for education on science. There is zero excuse why you shouldn't know these things by now. The only reason you don't believe these things is not science. It is because you believe things about the Bible. That is why you disbelieve these things. You have beliefs about the Bible that infringe upon your ability to process reality. The idea NASA ever landed on the moon. So he also denies that we landed on the moon on top of everything. Of course, why not? So yeah, he links this video. This video is, forget what is this? It's a weather balloon fight to stratosphere uncut from JW Astronomy Stratos Project. Yeah, okay. And the question he asks here is, what do you see in this footage? Well, I see a weather balloon going up into the air. And then he says, how does it compare to footage like NASA's footage at height less than 100,000 feet? This goes to 102,000 feet. If you compare the footage to models agreeing with globe math, they don't remotely agree. Globe math. Fundamentally, when I speak of world flood, I have different thoughts than you. No kidding. I see water pouring down above the firmament causing it. So he's a flat earther, I guess. I could be wrong. He said he wouldn't respond to that, my jaded comment that I left, which was, oh my word, you're a flat earther as well? Okay, that explains why there's zero logic in the video. Now, that was jaded. Okay? That was, not very nice way to say it. But it does. I mean, yeah. The fact that you have all these beliefs stacked on each other really does enlighten me to why you would have absolutely no ground to stand on when it comes to talking about reality whatsoever. Everything you said in your first video makes perfect sense now, in the sense of it's still nonsense, but now I understand why you believe all this nonsense. You believe there's a firmament. You believe the earth is young. You don't believe in science. You don't believe that we went to the moon. I'm guessing you don't believe that the earth is an obloid spheroid, and you think it's this like flat, this dome ice cream cone shaped thing, I guess, or something, and you believe in a lot of this pseudoscience nonsense. because you believe the Bible, I guess, is literal, and that influences all your other ideas. So your incorrect beliefs about the Bible lead you to a place where you form an incorrect view of reality, and then that incorrect view of reality is what you then put philosophy on top of to try to make an argument for theology, and then wonder why nobody believes you. And nobody ever will. Except for maybe people that already believe in God and the nonsense that you believe in. The flat earthers and all that. They'll be on your side, but nobody else. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know reality. You need to seriously get educated. Now, here's what I would say. Now, that can come off as an insult, I suppose, not meant as an insult. Hey, look, I need to be educated on lots of things, okay? If there is a God, this is what I would say as hopefully an olive branch of sorts. God is proposed to be an entity that you have a relationship with. If that's true, like any human that exists for real, Captive Desk, for example, I know him, he knows me. Now, we don't know everything there is to know about each other. I could learn something new about him. Oh, you have this hobby. Oh my God, I didn't know you had that hobby. I have this hobby. Oh, you didn't know that. We can learn something new about each other, right? And it might be a good thing, might be a shocking thing, who knows? So if there's a God, could it be that your idea of God is incorrect, but there's still a God, but in your relationship, you're now learning new things about how God actually did it? Because perhaps you're worshiping a way to view the Bible rather than the actual being of God. And therefore, you need to let go of your idea of how to view the Bible and focus on the actual thing that's there and learn how it did things for real. And instead of worshiping a certain interpretation of the Bible, which is idolatry, to now worship the actual God by learning about how the world really is and how things really work for real. And by doing so, you will find out how amazing God actually is, because biological evolution is way cool. So is the Earth and universe being super old. That's amazing. You know, the way the world really works for real is way cool. And you could have a God being in charge of all that. Is it going to have to change how you view the Bible? Absolutely. So you can have a belief in God and not have to ignore reality. All right. So all of that I thought was really, really important to go over, even though it has his positions do not matter in terms of whether or not he has a valid and sound argument. I don't think he will have a valid and sound argument, but we'll see. All right. Let's see. Okay, so here's his first response. Well, let me get the first response up now, because here we go. 17 minutes. Oh, good. It's gonna be one of these, isn't it? All right. So we'll check it out.
Welcome to my first response to Deconverted Man. There is a lot to cover, but it is lengthy to the point that I should divide it into parts. To start, I will concede that I very well may have recorded my video underwater. But please don't leak this to any of your followers, though. This is our little secret.
Yeah, that's in reference to a little remark I had. I was like, "Oh, you're recording underwater," and the first video, anyways, because something was weird with the video and whatever. Doesn't matter.
More seriously, I'll begin. To start, Deconverted Man replies to my nihilistic argument of saying, I don't buy that argument, it matters now. The argument is that everything is meaningless if our lives are finite, compared to an infinite eternity, but deconstructed man considers our finite lives more valuable due to its limited time.
Hey, look, I may have mispronounced your name, but I did so accidentally. It's Deconverted Man, not Deconstructed Man. So don't do that again. But yeah, our lives are matter to us now, you can look at it the other way. What point does life have now if we have an infinity to look forward to? There's absolutely nothing I can do now that I couldn't do there. There's nothing I could learn now that I couldn't learn there. So what is the point of any of this? I can do all of this there. So just because it's limited doesn't mean it's not worth anything. That's my point. And your nihilistic view of reality, I don't buy it. That's not an argument. It's just my view. You didn't make an argument, so I don't need to make an argument. It's just your viewpoint of that you think that life only matters if it's infinite. But the problem is, it doesn't matter what you or I think. What matters is what is sound in logic. So just because we don't like that life matters or does not matter doesn't mean that anything else is true or false. So I don't want it to be that life doesn't matter. Therefore, there must be an afterlife. That is an appeal to consequence. So your argument fails because of the illogical fallacy. Period. End of story. That's it.
My response to this is to ask what matters about it. What numerical value can you place on this time?
Again, none of this really matters because your logical fallacy doesn't allow me to agree with your conclusion. You've done an appeal to consequence. That life only matters if there's an afterlife, and it doesn't matter if there isn't one or whatever. It doesn't. Yeah, come up with a valid and sound argument, and we'll talk about it. None of this matters, though.
Perspective is incredibly tiny. When you step on an ant, do you think, gee golly, I'm a murderer, I deserve...
That's whataboutism. So it's where you say, well, what about this thing? It's a distraction. It's a red herring.
...deserve to be put to death? I assume not. We assign arbitrary values to our lives.
Yeah, that is the case. We do assign arbitrary values to our lives. I do agree with that.
You began by speaking of ethics, but what is moral about ethics?
Ethics are the systems that we have to determine morals. Now, not everybody has any particular ethical system per se. There's a list of ethical systems I could provide you with. Let's just Google that right quick. Utilitarianism, deontology, virtue ethics, ethics of care, egoism, social contract, natural law, moral relativism, meta-ethics, applied ethics, situational ethics, and probably, they left out divine command theory out of that list. But yeah, those are the ethical. There's probably more ethical systems. It's a roadmap for your morals to follow. Now, not all people think in those terms. Not all people have adopted an ethical system or even care about the ethical systems. Some people that I've interacted with when talking about morals will say, I do what, is legal, and I do what I think will benefit people around me. And I do that because I care about people. And it's not a deep ethical system, but it doesn't have to be if it works. So your question on what ethics is and how it works highlights that you don't understand what ethics is. So why are we having this discussion? If you're asking the question, what is moral about ethics? That's like asking what flavor is 1 + 1. Banana is the answer, by the way.
It is purely convenience. When one innocent can be murdered to save 100 more, how do you choose?
Well, using my system, utilitarian, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. Although sometimes it's not true. The needs of the one sometimes outweigh the needs of the many. I learned that from Star Trek. Like I said, utilitarianism is just a convenience for me more than it is something that I adhere to dogmatically.
Do you think in absolutes? Never kill an innocent? Or do you
Yes, never kill an innocent. There's my view of ethical systems doesn't really matter in regards to whether or not we should choose theism in the end. And that's what your first video was about. And like I said, during my response to you, I say a lot of things, but not necessarily arguments per se, just whatever's coming to my mind that you're talking about. My personal ethics is that you should not commit harm that has no actual purpose to it. Now, there are only things I can give you as examples to that because I can't fully lay that out. If we harm somebody with a needle injecting them with medicine, but that harm is very small and that medicine is a necessary medicine for them to recover from their condition, their illness, whatever, or prevent them from gaining an illness, unless you're also an anti-vaxxer, which wouldn't surprise me. I shouldn't do that. Shouldn't do that. Shouldn't do that. I'm just saying. I mean, you know. But yes, vaccines really work for real. COVID-19. You know. Anyways, yes, get the jab. All right. Sorry. Let's edit that out. Pretend I didn't say any of that. Because that is a jab. I shouldn't do that. Okay. Apologize. Sorry. So if we had a really big needle, right, and that caused an immense amount of pain, and we were like, you know, but it still delivered the medicine versus the small needle, we would be ethically obliged in my system to use the small needle because there's no reason to use the big needle. Okay. If we figured out a way to deliver medicine with zero pain, we'd be ethically obliged to do that because causing pain and suffering without necessary components to me is wrong. But my view of ethics and morals is not relevant to whether or not your view of ethics and morals is correct. How do we determine whose is correct? Well, there isn't really a way per se, but there are things we can say about different ethical systems. There are many complaints you can lodge against utilitarianism for sure. There are many more complaints you can lodge against divine command theory. And that's, you know, and I don't know what ethical system you hold to. I would assume it's divine command theory, but I don't know.
think in gray values, the minority for the majority? To you, sacrificing one to save many might seem right. If you were on the chopping block, however, you would probably say that it is wrong to murder you. From a grand perspective,
I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'd say bring it on, or hopefully I'd say something cool, you know, like, you know, hey, I wonder if my head's going to be conscious for a couple seconds, you know. I don't know. Who cares what I say? I mean, like, what? I don't know. It's whatever.
it may seem right to make small sacrifices, but there are two problems with this. Firstly, we're guaranteeing we never reach an ideal state with compromise. By making small concessions here and there, we are in fact guaranteeing we will never reach a perfect solution.
I don't know what you're talking about, but that may be the case. It might not be the case, but negotiation is a necessary tool that we have to use. So, I mean, if you're aiming for an idealized society of some sort, I think that that's largely illusionary. Humans are not the sort of beings that would work well in any sort of perfect society. Read Those That Walk Away from Homeless for a good look at something like that.
The second issue is that ethics cannot ignore ownership. Sacrificing our own lives for others is within our right, but what of another person? Do we have a right to steal the life of another and gift it to others?
No.
This belief system is innately flawed. There is no longer any objective evaluation of right and wrong.
There is, but only within your ethical system of choice. Every ethical system is going to be your roadmap for the morals to point to, and that is objective in that at least you have somewhere you're going. Okay, but how you get there is subjective, and your selection of which ethical system that you're picking is also subjective. Read my book, Logic and Morals. It gives a logical foundation for how to establish uh, ethics with pure logic alone. So, yeah, you're just gonna have to buy my book. It's only $8, so there you go.
If we cannot deal with objective concepts, then everything is functionally meaningless. Everything seems important right now, but in the grand scheme, it is all incredibly insignificant.
That's an appeal to consequence again. So it's in the grand scheme, it's all insignificant. Who cares? We're not in the grand scheme. We're not going to see that. This is what I see here and now. This is what I get. This is what matters to me here and now. I have, there's nothing I can do about when I'm not. Okay. I certainly have a hope for humanity. I don't know that we'll reach it, but yeah, it doesn't, this is just appeal to consequence. Oh no, in the grand scheme, it all doesn't matter. And so what? If that is true and it really doesn't matter, oh well, we still have to make do with what reality hands us. And in this case, if it's handing us a objectively nothingness of why we're here, how we're here, whatever, all that, okay, go, well, that sucks. I guess I'll make do and I'll accept that, but I will act as if it does matter because I feel like it matters to me and it seems like it matters for other people. And so why not make the best of it? Make my life as good as I can and help others to make theirs as good as can, because why not? Why not fight against entropy? Why not fight against the vile evils that we could do? Sure, we could kill each other off and end humanity and even maybe destroy the planet. And in one sense, yeah, that would mean there would be no suffering. But I would say, no, we didn't win the battle. We lost the battle. In my view, we only win if, we end suffering. And that's something I don't know that we could actually do, but we could certainly work at it.
Another scenario. If you endure the worst suffering ever right now, you can gain an eternity of wealth. From a broad perspective, the obvious answer should be, let me suffer now for future rewards.
Well, I mean, this is just a personal disagreement between you and I that's really all it's going to be, is that I don't think the means justify the ends. That if I torture you for a year, that doesn't mean that me giving you a mansion makes that year of torture not evil and vile and sickening. And, so, hey, are you willing to be tortured for a year? Promise I'll give you a mansion at the end. Now, maybe you'd say yes to that. I don't know. But am I a sick, twisted individual for torturing you for that year? Yeah. Wouldn't it be better just to give you the damn mansion? Yeah. And it would also make me a good person. So if you're saying that God is allowing us or torturing us, allowing us to be tortured and or torturing us, but eventually will give us a reward, well, then God's a sick, twisted individual. Or if you think, well, God's not doing it, but he's allowing it to happen, well, what's the difference? And not everybody's going to get the nice reward. So for some people, it's suck at life, get all the bad stuff now, and also wait for the end, because there is no end and you get to suffer forever. So now what? You suffer now and you suffer then and forever suffer. What's the point of that?
But being confronted with a lifetime of suffering, it is easy to think, do I really need that eternal blessing? Looking at a small scale is detrimental to the whole, and if we place a numerical value on our lives, it becomes increasingly insignificant over a greater span of time. One could say that to reject math is to reject reality. What we are essentially dealing with is calculus, where x over infinity approaches zero. It might not be considered zero, but it is functionally zero. Functionally, everything that seems important right now is incredibly insignificant for the whole, unless there is justice served over eternity. Your second argument is that the story would get boring if we dragged on. That's quite arbitrary, to be honest.
Well, yeah, because like I said, I'm not really making arguments per se. I'm just responding to stuff you said. I think it would get boring. I mean, if we run out of stuff to do. I mean, in a trillion years, in a trillion, keep adding that up, you'll listen to every song that's ever been done. You'll listen to every play that's ever been, every movie, every TV show, every book. And now you might say, well, there's an infinite amount. That's true. There is an infinite amount of type of music you could make. But, and they've done studies on this, it's quite interesting. Many songs have the four same chords, like, several songs that share the same chords. Okay. So there's a limited amount of music that we enjoy. So there's a limited amount of music that we would actually like to listen to. I suppose you would get bored enough to where you would listen to music that you hate just because you don't have anything else to do. But that doesn't sound fun. You can't stop existing. Why not? Why not give you the option to quit? At least they did that in The Good Place. But, I think, and you could say, well, we're going to have new stuff. We're going to invent new stuff. Then it makes life even more pointless. Why are we dealing with any of this here and now when we can invent new stuff there? What point is any of this? It doesn't, you can't have it both ways. It's just, well, I guess you want it both ways, but, I get it. You want there to be, you want to keep existing. I'm used to existing, but that doesn't mean that we keep on existing. And no matter what consequence we put on or recognize, that doesn't make it true that there is an infinite life to come to us, and whether it's in this life that we figure out how to give ourselves immortality, or there really is an afterlife, I would still hope that there's an option to say, I'm done now, and be done with it and just end it, because it might get boring. It might not, but I don't know, and you don't know either. So it's all pure speculation. But again, it's not anything that explains why theism, because theism doesn't necessarily guarantee an afterlife. Hinduism certainly doesn't. Of course, you're not talking about theism broadly in your other video. You were talking about a very particular version of theism, your theism, right? But, you could have called the video Why Christianity? Why Young Earth, Flat Earth, Denial of NASA's Landing Christianity, just to make it really clear. Possibly anti-vaxxer Christianity. I don't know. Anyways, that would have been a long title, though.
From our finite perspective, things might drag on as we appear to learn all there is. If we view it from a perspective that we are progressing and learning, however, it could be very well that we are become more satisfied. That argument isn't really meaningful. You next responded to my view of the past and future being irrelevant in a worldview without eternity or justice by saying that is a weird view.
Yep.
I'd respond to that by saying it is the most logical take.
I'd love to hear your valid and sound argument then.
You yourself stated that this life is the most precious time. If that is the case, then both the past and future should be disregarded in favor of the present.
No, because your past informs you of who you are now, and the future is something to prepare for. This is just silly. But again, my view on life, your view on life, is not really relevant to the broader discussion of why we should embrace theology over reality. if we're going to choose between the two, which is potentially a false dichotomy. Maybe you can embrace reality and theology. Of course, you would have to embrace reality, and honestly, you don't.
I don't see how that is weird, since you essentially made the argument yourself. Your next argument was that you're pro-utilitarianism, admitting that it is a flawed system, but saying that divine command is the worst.
Yep.
Your argument is that you cannot know right and wrong, and are instead being told right and wrong by a deity that you cannot know exist.
Right.
This argument has a few errors in it. Baseless faith is substantially different than proven faith.
What's a bleep is proven faith? If you had proven faith, you wouldn't call it faith. You'd call it a fact. Of course, you mean trust or what? No, faith is belief without evidence. That's what the word means. I know people don't like it, but that's what it is. Okay. If you have evidence, then you don't need faith. You just call it a fact. Oh, well, faith is trust. Then don't use the word faith. Say trust. Trust in what? How do you establish trust? With evidence. So what's your evidence? That's all. Just present your evidence. And if you don't have evidence, then what do you have? An argument? Well, you haven't given us an argument. Just saying stuff. I'm saying stuff. That's it. There is no argument here. We need something here. But no, we don't know what God said, because what we know is that people claim that God said stuff. That's for sure. But we don't know that that's actually God saying it. We just know that people said that God said it. And that's every single cult and every single religion just about does the same thing. I'm God. Do what I say. Okay. Or I talk to God. Do what I say. Okay. And you're not allowed to question it. You're not allowed to test it. You're not allowed to verify it. Because it's all faith.
Knowing who our Creator is an entirely different conversation. One of my favorite quotes comes from a writing that was rejected by the Catholic Church, but comes from Peter in the Recognitions of Clement. Do not think that we say that these things are only to be received by faith, but also that they are to be asserted by reason. For indeed, it is not safe to commit these things to bare faith without reason, since assuredly truth cannot be without reason. And therefore, he who has received these things fortified by reason can never lose them, whereas he who receives them without proofs, by an assent to a simple statement of them, can neither keep them safely nor is certain if they are true. There is a lot we can prove from the world around us, namely, moral consistency is a start. As we would have done unto ourselves, we should do unto others.
Not necessarily. What you want to do to yourself might not be the thing to do to somebody else. Like some people are sadomasochists and enjoy pain. I don't want pain, though. I'm not a sadomasochist. So is the sadomasochist supposed to treat me with pain because they enjoy it? Or should they recognize that I don't enjoy it? Shouldn't it be treat others the way that they want you to treat them? That's a much better saying, I think.
That should be the first premise for knowing who our Creator is. Secondly, we should appeal to prophecy. If we want to know who He is...
All right, here's a prophecy. The sun will come up tomorrow. Bet your bottom dollar that tomorrow there'll be sun. Anyway, that's enough of that song. You know, sometimes, though, you just have to open your eyes and see that your eyes are open. That's another song, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Hold on to the night. It will be all right. Always I want to be with you and make believe it. Oh, sorry. Back to the video. Sorry.
Is surely the ability to accurately prophesy a future event in great detail is substantial evidence of who to go to for accurate information. I cover this in my other video, Why the God of Israel. Integrity is a key virtue in
Alright.
discerning such things, but unfortunately people lack integrity.
Okay, so the prophecies are vague. Some of them have failed, and some of them aren't prophecies. The Jewish people said what the prophecies were. They understood it. They were looking for a specific type of Messiah who wasn't Jesus. The later people who knew about the Torah, because it was around when they were there, said, we want our Savior to, fulfill some prophecies. So we're just going to say that he did. And there you go. He totally did this thing where he rode on 2 donkeys to fulfill this prophecy. And the Jewish people are like, what the bleep are you talking about? That's not a prophecy. Huh? And they're like, don't worry about it. It's our religion, not yours, heretic. You just don't understand. Jesus is the chosen one. See, he fulfilled this prophecy. He did? No, he didn't. No, he did. He's totally from Bethlehem. Also Nazareth. Well, and he was born in Bethlehem, but he lived in Nazareth. See, because he was born in Bethlehem, but he lived in Nazareth, so he's from Nazareth, even though he's born in Bethlehem, because both are really important. Also, there was a star there. What? What are you talking about? They just made up the story. There are no actual fulfilled prophecies. It's just people that knew about what the Old Testament said and pretended that that stuff was fulfilled by Jesus. The story doesn't prove anything. It's made up. They knew what the story said, so they said that Jesus did those things. Jesus didn't do any of those things. I don't know what Jesus did. Or even if Jesus was, yeah, I'm one of those. Oh no. But here's the problem. There's nothing that suggests that Jesus did the things that they claim he did. Nobody else noticed any of the things that supposedly happened during the time of Jesus. Only the anonymous people that years after the event wrote down what happened. Now, maybe there was people during the time that wrote it down, but we don't have those papers anymore because, of course, we don't. And it beyond insanity that God would rely upon us feeble humans to continue its message outward. That's just dumb, pure dumb. Of course people are going to change the Bible. Of course people are going to say stuff that isn't in there. They're going to change it for their own desires and their own gain of power. And the Bible has changed and continues to change today in newer translations. And God's not stopping any of that. God's not stopping me from saying there is no God or that God is a lobster. Read The Lobsterist, because God is just, well, if it exists, it doesn't care what we say about it. Or if it doesn't exist, then yeah, we can say whatever we want about it. But as far as these prophecies go, yeah, Muslims try that same thing. It doesn't impress me, not even a little. You don't know the methodology of how to establish somebody as a prophet in the first place. That's number one. Number two is, okay, how do we know what to include and not include? Okay, because if somebody says, hey, this is going to happen, blah, 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 okay, great. One of them is, the piercing, the Israel, all that people think is Jesus. But if you keep reading the thing, the story doesn't match Jesus anymore. You have to cut it off for it to match Jesus. You have to ignore certain parts. Oh, this part was a prophecy for Jesus. How do you know that? Well, they knew it. How did they know it? There's no methodology that allows us to know how they knew what they knew. They don't explain any of that. So it's a story, and it's circular reasoning to think that the story proves the story. Okay? That's it.
Firstly, with the sacrifices and eating of creatures, the willingness to infringe on other people's lives for the sake of our advantage. Think business. It is a competition where some win and some lose, where we don't consider the losers. With such moral inconsistencies, it is no wonder we struggle to know who our Creator is, and therefore struggle to know His commandments.
I don't know. Seems like it should be really easy for the creator, if there is one, to just tell us, "Hey, God, what's up? It's me again. Yep, doing this again. I know. I'm sick of it. I'm too. All right, got another one of these guys here. You want to tell me what the commandments are? No? What? It's in my head. Oh, yes. The first commandment is to give deconverted man $100. Okay. God told me that. That's the first commandment. I don't make it up. God said it. Now, how are you going to prove or disprove that? What methodology are you going to use to confirm or deny that God told me anything in my brain just now? Look forward to that response or my $100. Either way, I'll be pretty happy. It could have been $1,000, it could have been $1 million, but it was only 100,
You next argued that even if their life is meaningless outside of eternal judgment, it doesn't prove there is justice. That is correct, but I didn't make that argument. My first argument was about wisdom and not proof. Every action we take, we treat as if it has value. Our whole life is governed by purpose. Without purpose, our existence lacks relevant substance. Wisdom, therefore, dictates that we pursue knowledge of purpose that is truly meaningful. Spending your time denying eternal justice is to nobody's advantage.
There's nothing to deny. There's no proof of eternal justice at all. So there's nothing to deny. You need proof that there is an eternal anything in the first place and that there's justice. You don't have that.
Simply promotes chaos and inconsistency. By treating our lives
Another appeal to consequence.
as random, created by chance and without justice.
Yes, we were created, even though that's the wrong term, we are the result of natural selection, which isn't just chance, but there's a filtering mechanism. Learn biological evolution for the love of humanity. Okay, it's not just chance. It's not just chance. There's a filtering mechanism. Okay? And that's how it is. That's the reality. Maybe there's a God on top of that. But yes, we are the result of random chance plus a filtering mechanism that we call natural selection. That's the reality. Appealing to a consequence and saying, oh no, doesn't make it false. Your ignorance about the subject doesn't make it false.
We defeat the point in doing anything at all, since we cannot be truly certain of anything and gain nothing from it. You next argue that if you torture me for 5 hours and then erase my memory, you still remember my suffering.
Sorry, I accidentally clicked on that. I didn't mean to. Have I watched those? No, I don't waste my time with that. I did read a metadata study on NDEs, and its conclusion was that they're basically nothing. That there is no science being done here on NDEs, and the few times that we've actually attempted real scientific rigor on near-death experience stuff, that it has failed to produce a result that would be confirmable. They've multiple hospitals, as far as I know. I don't know how many, at least one or two, maybe more. I want to say at least two for sure that I've read about. I'd have to look and dig for it, but I said multiple. It might be two is multiple. Anyways, whatever. More than two, hopefully, but at least two had a bunch of objects on a shelf in a box. Okay, and because the people were saying that they floated out of their body and they saw their body looking down. So they're like, well, if they're floating up there, they can see what's on that high shelf, and they can look in the box, and they can see what's in the box. And then when they come back, they can tell us what was in the box. They can write it down. We can record them saying it. We can show what time it is and multiple, we show the internet time. We show the time on our watch. We show, various different ways to prove what time it is, and then you take the box down and you go, what's in the box? And then you see if what they said matches the box. And every time, nobody's done that successfully. Some hospitals have put a piece of paper and taped it on the ceiling, and there's writing on this side of the paper. And so if you were hovering through the ceiling, you could look through the ceiling and see the paper and read what's on it. And nobody has reported anything that was written there. There was one supposed story where a person read off the serial numbers of some machine, but there was no verification that machine was actually there, had serial numbers to read, and that this person ever actually did it, because there was no actual records of any of it. It was just a story. So the metadata study on NDE concluded that it's nothing. It's a bunch of stories. So that answers that question. It would be interesting if there was, but there just isn't. Anyways, okay. So where was I? Sorry, back to the video here. And wait, this is different. What is this? Huh? Open your eyes, fuzzy. Your eyes are open. Oh, that's gonna get me demonetized. I can't play that song. Okay, sorry. I'm sorry. Once again, back to the video.
You then claim that, in your view, it is ethically wrong to torture me in that way.
Yep.
And my response is asking how significant this wrong is. Are we talking gravely wrong or minimally wrong?
What? It's wrong. It's just wrong. Whatever. I don't know how to. It's wrong. It's wrong to hurt people. Okay. I don't do things like that. It's just wrong is wrong. Anyways, whatever. I don't know.
I suffered 5 hours and then lived 50 years more. It is hardly any different than a woman bearing a child. She embraces the suffering in the short term for the reward.
That's very different, because I'm inflicting the harm upon you without your consent or desire. Whereas a woman undergoes labor because, well, she wants to have a baby. However, we can negate the pain and suffering of women thanks to modern technology. So screw God's little power trip that he made women suffer more during childbirth, although some women can't do that because it's dangerous. Also, there's C-section, which doesn't hurt at all, so there's that option. But, if a woman chooses to undergo birth and doesn't take any medicine, and there are other ways that we can that pain can be negated or dampened. Birth in water, Lamaze to some extent helps. There's other things that people can do that will make the birth process far easier. But if a woman decides that she wants that pain, that's her choice. Me torturing you is not your choice. You didn't agree to it. I'm inflicting it upon you in that scenario. That's the wrongness, is that it is not something that you want to happen to you in that moment. And the fact in that scenario that I then erase your memory doesn't make it okay that I put you through that. The ends don't justify the means. But again, these are just my views of ethics and morals, broadly speaking, and don't really matter in the broader context of why we should choose theism versus anything else. And so I mean, I have to deal with this video as it comes to me and respond to it as it comes. But I'd like to try to focus our thing on, theism versus anything else. Although I really think it should be narrowed down to Christianity, young earth Christianity, young earth, flat earth Christianity with moon denial versus any other system. Why should we choose young earth possibly flat Earth Christianity over, I don't know, Christianity that doesn't have all that nonsense attached. I think I would, if I was going to pick Christianity, I would pick the Christianity that doesn't subscribe to all that nonsense. But that's just me. But anyways.
In the long term. The suffering is insignificant related to the long term. You can argue it is wrong, but this wrong could be considered entirely insignificant. You then said, so what if this is a meaningless world? We still have to operate in it.
Yep.
We do not. We could stop breathing in this very moment and suffer for a few minutes before dying and no longer caring.
I mean, you can, but I wouldn't suggest it.
Something or someone caused us to cherish our lives.
I guess we broadly speaking want to live because it's kind of built into us by biological evolution. So I guess yes. You got one.
Whether you consider it evolutionary or by a divine creator is another discussion.
Well, that's a false dichotomy, because it could be that the creator, in fact, it would have to be that the creator used biological evolution, because biological evolution is absolutely 100% true and is a fact. So if there is a creator, that's what it used to get us here. End of story there. So it's not one or the other. It would have to be both.
But there was a primary cause for us to place value on our own survival. We clearly care about surviving, or we would not continue our lives. If we cherish our current existence so much, then the wiser approach is to treat our lives as having an eternity with justice.
Why? What does the eternity have anything to do with this life now? What can I not do? What can I do again? What can I do now that I couldn't do there?
Your next point was regarding what a perfect judgment would look like. You bring up the idea of meeting others after your life that you've interacted with, and then feeling the feelings you've caused on others and experience it for the time that they experienced it. You then raise the point that after you've dealt with all that, what next? Your argument is that we then just exist. To answer this, I'll explain what my belief about the subject is. According to Peter, in the Homilies of Clement, which I consider the wisest writing I've read, it is about which kingdom we partake in. To start, Peter raises this point. And Peter said, are not those, then, who you said received justice, themselves transgressors, inasmuch as they are in the kingdom of the other, as is it not by overreaching that they have obtained all they possess? While those who are thought to act unjustly are conferring a favor on each subject of the hostile kingdom, so far as they permit him to have property. For these possessions belong to those who have chosen the present, and they are so far kind as to permit the others to live. This is true in that business is competition. Winners gain everything, and losers lose their homes. If one pursues something, like let's say moral philosophy, they are unlikely to gain an income suitable to provide for them. Big business owners, however, push and deceive others into bad deals that gave them disproportionate degrees of wealth while feeding the scraps to the people under them. An example from my life, for example, came from when I worked at Amazon. Amazon had many rules and regulations about how parcels were supposed to be delivered for both the deliverer's safety and the customer's safety. With these guidelines in place, they convince everyone that they are taking their job seriously. They then hired various distribution companies to compete with each other. Whoever delivered the quickest would get the most business. The number crunches became so insane that we were expected to deliver each parcel in less than 2 minutes while traversing various cities. If one of us was slow, everyone else would get upset because the work was then put onto them. One day, an old lady was killed because someone's van rolled backwards into her down a hill. Amazon wasn't given any of the responsibility. Despite being responsible for the time pressure that the individual was under, they found a way to take advantage of the system and come out on top. This was entirely unjust, but that is how our system works. The craft
I mean, I don't care. Just get to the point already, really. Uh, is this long, man? I mean, I know I could be long and meandering, but just get to the point. What the bleep are you talking about? I don't. This is the problem with the first video. It's just you say stuff that has. It's like, what what are you even talking about? What does any of this have to do with anything? I don't know. So I'm just gonna skip through this.
crafty gained the advantages while the innocently death of this hostile kingdom gained the wealth, while the innocent of the next kingdom suffered. Similarly, I live in Canada. Very disproportionately, Alberta does most of the work. Despite their many contributions, the wealth is distributed to Ontario and British Columbia. The one who worked the hardest gained disproportionately less for their work. Similarly with taxes, greater it becomes more beneficial. This is the premise for which Peter addresses the next point. The prophet of the truth who appeared on earth taught us that the maker and God of all
Uh, I'm just gonna have to say I don't care what Peter said. I don't know where you're getting that from. I don't care where it's coming from. What is the point of any of that? I mean, I don't believe in any of that stuff. Okay, so you need to establish a reason for me to believe any of that stuff matters in the first place. If this is just a conversation of ethics and morals, I mean, to some extent, maybe that's interesting, but I'd rather focus on the truth of the matter. And your first video is why theism? And a lot of what I said, again, is as it came. You say stuff, I respond to it. And your arguments, which you don't really have because you don't have a formal syllogism, are full of logical fallacies, which you're not addressing here and now. So you're kind of missing the point. And I don't care about Peter or Paul. I don't care what somebody said. What is the evidence of the afterlife? Not this appeal to consequence. Give me a valid and sound argument for the afterlife and or divine justice. And if you're unwilling or unable to do that, then I have to be skeptical of your conclusion. Do you get anywhere with any of this? I don't know. Let's see.
gave 2 kingdoms to 2,
I'm
good
still
and
talking
evil,
about Peter.
should have to come. But he made each
Okay.
that the maker and God of all, to give himself up to whoever whatsoever determined to accept the blessings of the future reign. I have no right to life, for it is not lawful for them to commit suicide. By pursuing the advantage of ourself at the cost of others, we disqualify ourselves from the kingdom of the innocent. Those who treat other lives as equal to or greater than their own prove themselves worthy of eternal blessings. And
Okay, well, whatever. I mean, however you want to think that the afterlife is earned by whatever system, again, doesn't matter unless you prove that that's a real thing in the first place. So, I'm getting kind of like, I thought I was going to be able to do part 2 as well, but like, I'm kind of like done now. I'm like, I don't think that this is going to go any further. I don't think there's anything worth listening to. I'm just being honest with you, Alex. You see, I'm not trying to insult you or whatever. I might come off that way. It is what it is. I don't care what somebody said. You shouldn't care what I say, really. What we should hypothetically care about is, do we have evidence for the thing? Do we have a valid and sound argument? And if not, then we need to be skeptical of it. Your first video, you said, why theism? You said a bunch of stuff and full of logical fallacies. Appeal to consequence, personal incredulity, appeals to ignorance, equivocation, straw man, a whole bunch of just nonsense and things that just aren't true. And when you're so far from reality as you seem to be, I don't think that I can help you in the sense of no matter what I tell you about informal logic, it's not going to matter because you're not going to get it. In fact, I have somebody in chat right now that's exhibiting this similar behavior in a way. This guy, CRISPR, he was here whenever last time I did a stream a while back. Maybe not last time, but he was here at some point asking about the universe as if we would know the answer. And he's like, well, I Googled it, and Google says the Big Bang had a beginning. Yeah, but you didn't actually look into it further. You didn't do more research on it. Google's not enough. I'm like, well, try ChatGPT. It will explain more. Like, it's going to get stuff wrong maybe, but it will explain more. And we spent a lot of time on it. But it doesn't matter. He reset because he's a little bot that doesn't know reality. He's like, how do things work? Oh, that doesn't make sense. How do things work? Go learn it. Go research it. Go read a book. Okay? Stop asking random people on the internet and just educate yourself already. I don't know how universe is, of, begin, whatever. I don't know. That's not a thing I know. Why would I know that? I'm not a scientist. I don't know. Go figure that out. And our not knowing the answer doesn't mean that there's a God. So we need to stop the appeals to ignorance. We need to stop the logical fallacies. Because when you have logical fallacies, which is, as far as I can tell, all you've had, then we have to be skeptical of the conclusions. And if you want a formalized argument of that, I'll be glad to give it to you after you give me that $100 that God totally told everybody to give to me. So anyways, read the Lobsterist, and until next time, be skeptical. I guess I'll do part 2 some other time, so I'll edit that out of the video's description because I didn't do that here. And I did finish this, but I don't feel like it, so I guess maybe I'll finish the rest of this in part 2. If anyone wants me to do a part 2, we'll see how well this does number-wise, and I'll decide on that. I know that none of you are going to leave comments, but I'm going to ask you to leave a comment anyways. If you are in chat right now and you are hearing my voice, when this is done and I hit the button and it's on YouTube, just hit F5 a few times and then like type in a comment and hit send. Why? Because then YouTube thinks that I matter and then shows my channel to more people, and that's cool. Okay, I'm not asking for money. That's all I'm asking for. Well, I might be asking for money later, but anyways, I guess I do ask for money when I tell you to buy my books, but you know, whatever. Okay, that's it. That's all I've got. There's no empirical evidence, no repeatable tests, and no valid and sound arguments, so we have to be skeptical of the conclusions. Thanks, Alex, for being a sport, and I do apologize if I've offended you in any way, shape, or form, but, you know, I'm a jaded guy, so who knows, whatever. You can feel free to make fun of this back scratcher. Yeah, make fun of that, and then we'll be even, I guess. That might not make any sense. But you know what really does make sense? Is he going to play the Robot Unicorn Attack song again? Or is he going to sing it? Oh, yeah, he might. No, wait, no, don't end the stream. No, I was going to sing it. Wait, no,